Hello everyone, welcome back or welcome to the channel. My name's Emily and you're listening to The Vanishing Point. In today's video we're going to be discussing the Amityville Horror of the Defeo family murders and the Lutz family who moved in shortly after, so please sit back and enjoy. The house at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville was built in 1924, but it was the Defeo family who would leave their tragic and permanent mark on its walls. For Ronald Defeo Sr., his wife Louise and their 5 children, the house was meant to be a place of stability and success. Instead, it became the site of one of Long Island's most notorious mass murders. Ronald Sr. grew up in Brooklyn before building a career in the automotive industry, eventually owning a dealership in Brooklyn and a body shop in Amityville. He was a hard worker with a temper, and his relationship with his eldest son was fraught with tension. Louise was a devoted mother who managed the household and doted on all her children, often acting as a buffer between father and son. Their 5 children were called Ronald Jr., or Butch as he was known, Dawn, Allison, Mark and John. Ronald Jr., born in 1951, the eldest, was rebellious, struggled in school and had a volatile relationship with his father. He worked at his father's body shop but clashed with him over money and independence. As a young man, he was known to use drugs and had a history of emotional outbursts. Dawn, the oldest daughter, 18 at the time of her death, was a quiet girl who dreamed of becoming a teacher. She was close to her mother and often helped care for her younger siblings. Allison, 13 years old, was described as gentle and artistic with a love of drawing and music. Mark, 12 years old, an active boy who played football and had recently been injured in a game, leaving him reliant on crutches. John, the youngest at 9, he was playful and affectionate, often following his older siblings around the house. The family was well known in the neighbourhood, though some recalled tension behind closed doors. Ronald Sr. was strict and arguments between him and Butch were not uncommon. Despite this, the neighbours spoke of seeing the children play in the yard and the family attended local events together. The house itself was filled with personal touches: Louise's garden out back, children's toys scattered in the living room, and a sign by the driveway that read "High Hopes," a testament to the family's ambitions. In the hours leading up to the murders, Butch later told investigators he had been arguing with his father over money. Ronald Sr. had accused him of stealing from the body shop and the fight grew heated. According to Butch's initial statements, he went to his room, retrieved his .35 caliber Marlin rifle and then moved through the house, shooting each family member while they slept, but details from the crime scene painted a more complex picture. Autopsies showed that Louise and Allison had been shot multiple times, and evidence suggested they might have been awake when attacked, as Louise's hands were raised as if to defend herself and Allison's body was positioned as if she had tried to get up. All 6 victims were found face down in their beds, covered with blankets, even though the November night was mild enough to have the windows open. No one in the neighbourhood reported hearing any gunshots, which puzzled the police. Butch later claimed he used a silencer, but none was ever found. After the killings, he showered, changed his clothes and hid the rifle in a storm drain before driving to Henry's bar, where he worked part-time. It was there he burst in just after 6:30 p.m, screaming that someone had shot his parents and siblings. Friends and bar customers followed him back to the house, where they made the gruesome discovery. When the police arrived, they found no signs of forced entry, but Butch's behaviour, calm at times, then hysterical, raised suspicion. Over the next 24 hours, inconsistencies in his story mounted. He couldn't explain how the killer would have known where each family member slept, or why valuables in the house had been left untouched. Eventually, he broke down and confessed to all 6 murders. Butch's trial began in October 1975. His defence team, led by William Webber, argued that he was legally insane at the time of the killings, claiming he had been driven to act by voices in his head that told him his family was plotting to kill him. They presented testimony from psychiatrists who diagnosed him with paranoid schizophrenia, but prosecutors countered that he had planned the murders carefully, even turning off the house phone line to prevent anyone from calling for any help. The jury deliberated for just over 13 hours before rejecting the insanity plea and convicting Butch on 6 counts of second-degree murder. He was sentenced to 6 concurrent terms of 25 years to life in prison. He was incarcerated at Greenhaven Correctional Facility and later transferred to Sullivan Correctional Facility, where he thankfully died of natural causes on March 12, 2021 at the age of 69. He never recanted his confession, though he sometimes claimed other people had been involved, but that was a claim investigators never confirmed or denied. In the wake of the murders, the Defeo family's relatives struggled to come to terms with the tragedy. Louise's sister spoke of her shock at losing her sister and 5 nieces and nephews, while Ronald Sr.'s brother said the family had been destroyed by what had happened. The house was sealed off, its contents left inside as evidence, and it sat empty for more than a year before being sold to the Lutz family. George Lutz, born on either January 1st, 1947 or April 29th, 1947 in Long Island, New York. He worked as a writer and was married to Kathy Lutz from July 4th, 1975 until their divorce in 1988. They had 2 daughters, Noelle and Gabrielle. He was stepfather to Kathy's 3 children from her first marriage, Danielle, Christopher and Melissa. George maintained until his death on May 8, 2006 in Las Vegas, Nevada, that the paranormal events were real. Kathy Lutz, born Kathleen Teresa Connors on October 13, 1946 in Massachusetts, was also a writer. As mentioned before, she had 3 children from her first marriage and 2 with George. Kathy passed away on August 17, 2004 in Scottsdale, Arizona due to illness and was confined to a wheelchair in her final years. There are conflicting claims about whether she later admitted the story was a hoax. In December 1975, they bought the house for $80,000, knowing it was the site of the 1974 Defeo family murders. They moved in on December 18th with their children and the dog, and many of the Defeo's furniture was included. After just 28 days, they fled on January 14th, 1976, citing terrifying supernatural phenomena, and later sold the house at a loss. Kathy Lutz was said to levitate and her face transformed into an aged-old woman. One child spoke to a spirit pig named Jody with glowing red eyes, and shadowy figures and apparitions were seen. Green slime oozed from ceilings, walls and keyholes, and doors and windows slammed shut on their own. Unnatural sounds like loud voices, music, footsteps, knocking, growls and whispers were reported, and a priest was told to get out by a mysterious voice when trying to bless the house. There were cold spots and pleasant odours like excrement or decay and swarms of flies in winter. Family members felt touched or pushed by unseen forces. George became irritable and obsessed with the fireplace. The children argued more, and one supposedly spoke to a shape-shifting angel named Josie. George also woke up at 3:15 a.m, the time of the Defeo murders, with dread and heard voices urging violence. Their story was documented in Jay Anson's 1977 book, The Amityville Horror, which inspired multiple films. George was working on a book with house photos when he died, while Kathy was involved in several related projects before her passing. Their children have had varying stances on the events. Daniel has spoken publicly about his experiences, though some details remain disputed. The Defeo murders were a crime rooted in real pain and conflict between a father and son, between a young man's struggles and his family's expectations. While the Amityville Horror legend would later overshadow their story, the lives of Ronald Sr., Louise, Dawn, Allison, Mark and John are at the heart of what happened at 112 Ocean Avenue. Their deaths left a scar on the Amityville community, and their memory endures beyond the myths that grew up around their home. Before I finish the video, you're all probably wondering why I've left out 2 very important people, Ed and Lorraine Warren. The reason for this is because they were only in the house for a very limited time compared to other investigators and researchers, but for the sake of today's video, I will mention their involvement. The Warrens were called in by a New York Times team shortly after George and Kathy Lutz fled the home in January 1976. Unlike many other investigators who arrived later, the Warrens were present for some of the earliest walkthroughs and seances held in the house. The Warrens were vocal supporters of the Lutz family's story. They famously declared the haunting to be one of the most terrifying cases of their career, rating it a 12 on a scale of 1 to 10. Ed claimed to have been physically pushed to the floor in the basement by an unseen force, while Lorraine reported sensing a dark, inhuman presence and was reportedly so overwhelmed by the energy in the house she vowed never to return. One of the most famous pieces of evidence associated with the case is a black and white photo of a ghost boy with glowing eyes peering out from a doorway, which was captured during an investigation led by the Warrens team. While skeptics argue that the figure is actually a member of the research team, Paul Bartz, wearing a plaid shirt, the Warrens maintained it was a manifestation of a demonic spirit, possibly Ronald Defeo Jr.'s youngest brother. Skeptics, including the Defeo family's lawyer William Weber, later claimed the whole story was a hoax made up over bottles of wine to help the Lutzes with their financial troubles. Despite the legal battles and debunking efforts by others, the Warrens never recanted their findings. They spent decades defending the haunting as a legitimate demonic infestation. The Warrens' involvement is the reason the case is so closely linked to the Conjuring universe today. The opening of The Conjuring 2 depicts their investigation of the Amityville house, cementing their role in the public's mind as the primary heroes of the story, even though they didn't have much involvement in the case. And that concludes today's video. I would love to hear what you all think. Do you believe the Lutz story to be true, or is it all just one big hoax? Let me know in the comments section. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. And if you want to get involved in the conversation, please leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to get back to you. And if you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing and hit the bell icon to be notified on new video uploads. And until next time, goodbye.